When I collapsed at work, the doctors called my parents. They never came. Instead, my sister tagged me. This is the hardest part. The part I hate to say out loud. They nearly killed me. Not with a knife. Not with a fist. They did it with silence. With bills. With expectation. My name's Maya Turner. I am 31 years old. Before I tell you how everything flipped, like and subscribe. Drop a comment where are you watching from. I always worked. I was the one who kept the lights on. Not just mine. Everyone's. I was the oldest. It felt like my job to carry them. My life was a spreadsheet. Every column was a debt. Their debt. I pushed myself through everything. Migraines felt like normal life. Being tired was just a baseline. I ate cheap food. I skipped doctor visits. There was always another bill. The office was loud that day. Too hot. I stood up from my desk. I needed a file. Just a few steps away. Then the lights went out. I woke up to the smell of disinfectant. A cold, flat feeling on my back. The beep of a machine. My head hurt where it hit the floor. A kind nurse explained it. Not stress. Not exhaustion. A full cardiac event. My heart stopped for 30 seconds. I was 31. The doctor was clear. Severe neglect, Maya. Your body quit. We called your parents. They know it's serious. We need them here to discuss your care. I lay there, wired up, oxygen running low in my nose. I waited for the door to burst open. I waited for the tears. I waited for the panic. I waited for their love. I waited. The doctor said they had called my parents. They had told them it was a cardiac event. A code blue situation when I arrived. They knew the severity. I was not afraid of dying anymore. I was afraid of being alone when I lived. I imagined my father driving fast. He would be shouting at traffic. He always did. He would park badly. He would rush in and demand to see me. He would tell the nurse he was the best dad in the world. He would make a scene. I imagined my mother. She would be fragile. She would weep quietly over my hand. She would say, "My poor strong girl, you work too hard." She would blame the job. She would not blame herself, but she would be there. The first hour passed. The noise of the hospital was constant. Wheels rolling, voices muffled, the little beep, beep, beep of my own machine. I checked my phone. It was on the bedside stand, charging slowly. No missed calls. No texts. Maybe they didn't hear the phone. Mom keeps her phone on silent. That was the excuse I started with. I needed an excuse. I needed them to still be good people. I reached for the nurse call button. I was thirsty. A young man came in. He was gentle. "Have your folks arrived yet, Maya?" he asked, pouring water for me. "Not yet. They live a little ways out." I lied. "They lived 45 minutes away?" He nodded. He was used to families not showing up. That hurt more than anything. My situation was normal here. Hour 2. I tried to convince myself they were in a panic. They were scrambling to get time off work. They were getting me a gift. A new book, flowers, anything. I texted Mom again. A little softer this time. I wanted to draw her out. Me. "Mom, I'm at St. Jude's. I'm okay now, but it was really scary. Are you guys coming? I need to talk to the doctor about my release." No immediate response. The hospital TV was on. A mindless comedy show. People laughing. I hated the sound of their laughter. Hour 3. The doctor returned. He was doing his rounds. He looked at my chart. He looked at me. "Maya, we still need to speak to a family member. We need someone reliable to monitor your medication for the first week. You cannot be discharged into a totally empty house, especially with your heart history." I felt my cheeks flush. Shame. I'm sure they're on their way. Traffic, maybe. He just looked at me with a professional, sad gaze. He gave me a pamphlet on cardiac recovery. He emphasized the support system several times. It felt like a subtle warning. The first night, I couldn't sleep. Every time the door opened, I snapped my head around. It was never them. It was the nurse, or the doctor, or housekeeping. The machines kept me awake. The knowledge kept me awake. Around 2 a.m., I picked up the phone again. I dialed my father's number, direct. It rang once, twice, then a click. Voicemail. I didn't leave a message. I hung up. I tried Mom's cell phone. It rang 3 times. A frantic, muffled sound in the background. Then another click. She hung up on me. She didn't let it ring to voicemail. She saw the number. She declined the call. That moment was the first real cut. She saw the number for her daughter, who was in the hospital, and she hit the decline button. I didn't cry. My eyes felt dry. It was a cold, hard pain. A fact, day 2. The exhaustion was physical and emotional now. The food tasted like ash. I tried to rationalize it again. They are scared. They think I'm fine. They don't want to overreact. I scrolled through my text history with my mother. It was pages of my messages offering help. Me. "Do you need that money for the utilities today, Mom?" Me. "I moved the money for Melissa's tuition." Me. "I can co-sign that for Dad." but I need to see the paperwork first. Her replies were always short. Yes, thanks, later. Hurry up. There was no history of her asking me if I was okay. There was no history of her asking me about my own life. Suddenly, a text arrived. My heart jumped. It was Mom. Mom, hi Maya, glad you're okay. Dad said the bank called about the insurance. Can you log in and make sure the auto pay is still going through? It's due today. You know how important that is. Need to focus on getting well. I stared at the words. The casual cruelty of them. Glad you're okay. A flat statement. No question mark. No emotional investment. Can you log in? Still, in the hospital bed, after a heart collapse, her first real communication was a demand for financial action. I wrote a reply. A long, angry reply. I typed it all out. Me. I'm in the hospital. My heart stopped. I nearly died. And the first thing you ask me is to pay a bill? Are you even a mother? I hovered over the send button. My hand shook, then I deleted it all. Every word. Why waste the energy? Why give them the drama they were trying to avoid? They didn't deserve my anger. Anger is a gift, I replied with one short clinical sentence. Me. I am physically unable to access that right now. I knew that was the key. They only understood terms of ability and function. They didn't understand terms of emotion. I put the phone down again. The anger had subsided. It was replaced by a deep, weary coldness. The nurse came in later that evening. She brought a puzzle book. You need a distraction, Maya. I worked the puzzle. I matched the words. I kept my mind numb. I was not disappointed anymore. Disappointment is when someone fails to meet a high standard. They hadn't failed. They had simply acted exactly like the people they always were. I was just finally seeing it without the filter of hope. Day 3. The silence was now deafening. The nurses assumed I was an orphan. They treated me with extra care. They were strangers, but they were my only family now. I felt stronger physically. The color was coming back to my face. I was getting ready to shower, moving slowly, dragging my IV pole with me. That's when the phone buzzed. Not a call, not a text. A social media notification. I picked it up. My sister Melissa. She was the one who was supposed to be so worried about her tuition money. I opened the notification. It was a picture. My entire family. My blood felt like ice in my veins. The betrayal had a name. It had a picture. It had a caption. And the waiting, the endless hoping, foolish waiting was finally, violently over. My isolation was their celebration. The truth was finally here. The phone was in my hand. It felt cold and heavy, like a smooth river rock. I was holding the notification from Instagram. My sister Melissa had tagged me. I opened the app, moving slow. I was braced for something, but not for this. Not for the sheer, brutal clarity of what I saw. The screen lit up with sun and color. My family, they were all there. My mother with her fake, bright smile. My father, big and relaxed, leaning back. Melissa, posing carefully, her hair perfect. My younger brother, Paige, looking bored but happy to be included. They were sitting at the big, weathered picnic table by Mirror Lake. I knew that spot. We used to go there when I was a kid. It was an hour from the hospital. Not far at all. They looked like they were shooting a commercial for family happiness. They looked perfect. The food was spread out on a massive blanket. Expensive sandwiches, specialty cheese, wine, the kind of picnic I would have paid for but never been invited to. And then, the caption. I had to read it 3 times. The words jumped out, cruel and sharp. Family day without the drama. I didn't blink. I didn't breathe. My heart monitor started that fast, frantic beep, beep, beep sound again. The one that meant I was in distress, without the drama. I looked at my hand. The IV track was still bruised. My skin was pale under the harsh hospital light. I had the taste of bland hospital food and stale air in my mouth. I had the pain in my chest, dull and constant. I was the drama. I was the crisis they had chosen to skip. The inconvenience they had decided to cut out of their perfect picture. They knew. There was no other possibility. The doctor had called them on Monday. It was now late Wednesday. They had discussed my cardiac arrest. They had discussed my collapse. And they had decided that dealing with their critically ill daughter and sister was too much trouble. It was drama. They didn't just choose to ignore me. They chose to mock me. The tag, that tiny digital pin, was the final, vicious statement. It wasn't an accident. Melissa was smart enough to control her social media. She wanted me to see it. She wanted me to know that their happiness was dependent on my absence. I pressed my thumb against the phone screen. I zoomed in on my mother's face. She was laughing. A full, genuine laugh. She was relaxed. She was free. Free from the burden of her oldest daughter, the one who paid for everything, the one who broke her body keeping their lights on. I looked at Melissa. She was holding a wine glass, her face angled perfectly towards the camera. She looked triumphant. She had won the battle for attention, for leisure, for the parents' time. I was the financial resource. I was the background noise. I was easily replaced by a perfect afternoon at the lake. I felt the immense, heavy weight of the last 20 years land on my chest. It wasn't just a heart problem. It was a life problem. I thought back to the 1,000 little cuts. When I was 22, working 2 part-time jobs and going to school, I told Mom I couldn't afford a trip home for Thanksgiving. She cried on the phone telling me how much Dad needed me. I maxed out a credit card to buy a plane ticket. When I arrived, they were throwing a party. Not a quiet family dinner. A huge, loud party. My mother told me, "See? We knew you'd find a way. You always do, Maya." She never thanked me. When Melissa got into college, she needed a car. I used my entire signing bonus from my first salaried job to pay the down payment. She wrapped the car around a pole 6 months later. My father called me, furious, demanding I pay the deductible, saying, "You bought her the car. Maya, this is your responsibility." He never asked if I was hurt when I went to the police station to fill out the insurance report. When Paige needed money for his boutique, they all ganged up on me. It was a family meeting. They sat me down in the kitchen. "You're doing so well, Maya. You have that big job," Mom said, sipping tea. "Paige is your brother. Family helps family," Dad stated, his voice heavy with authority. Paige just looked at me with those wide, innocent eyes. "It's a great investment, Maya. I'll pay you back. It's for my future." I co-signed the loan. I paid the fees. I paid the monthly penalties when he inevitably failed to make the payments. I did it because I believed the lie. Family helps family. Now, here was the proof of what they thought family meant. Family was a transaction. Family was a photo op. And when the transaction failed, when the resource was offline, they moved on to the next pleasant activity. The nurse, the gentle one, rushed back in. "Maya, your heart rate is way up. What is it?" I slowly, deliberately turned the phone screen away from her. I put it face down on the white sheet. "Nothing," I whispered. My voice was dry, just a bit of a panic attack. "I'm okay. I just need a minute." She gave me a gentle shoulder rub. She spoke to me in calm tones. She was trying to soothe my heart. My heart didn't need soothing. My soul needed resurrection. She left after my heart rate settled. I waited until the door clicked shut. I picked up the phone again. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even feel the hot, sharp spike of anger anymore. What I felt was a cold, absolute finality. The feeling was like a piece of glass breaking inside me, not shattering everywhere, but neatly breaking away from something it was attached to. The bond was severed. The expectation was dead. I looked at the picture one last time. I memorized their faces, their easy, happy expressions, their carelessness. Then I deleted the Instagram app, not just closing it, deleting it completely. I didn't need to see their perfect fiction anymore. I sat there, looking at the smooth, empty space on my phone where the app used to be. The simple action felt heavy. It felt like walking away from a house that was on fire. The hospital room was safe. The silence was safe. I was safe here. Safe from the demanding texts, the tearful pleas, the endless stream of needs. I was not their daughter. I was their tool. And tools are easily replaced when they break. But I wasn't just a broken tool anymore. I was a person who had finally seen the truth. I was a person who had stopped waiting. I was a person who was no longer available for their drama. I got out of the bed. I moved the IV pole with me. I walked over to the window. The city outside was gray and loud. It was real. I thought about calling them back. I could call. I could yell. I could send them the picture of me, hooked up to the wires, and say, "This is my reality. This is your doing." But what would be the point? They wouldn't care. They would turn it back on me. They would call it my dramatic episode. They would say I was seeking attention. My lawyer, Mr. Hayes, would later call this my moment of emotional sovereignty. I didn't need their love anymore. I didn't need their validation. I didn't need their presence. All I needed was to be well, to be strong, to be free. The greatest pain was not the collapse. The greatest pain was seeing their joy in my suffering. But that joy was also the greatest gift. It liberated me completely. I was no longer bound by the false hope that they might one day change. I climbed back into the bed. I closed my eyes. I was tired, but I was not sad. Sadness requires care. I had been caring for them for 20 years. Now it was time to care for me. The only one left. The only one who mattered now. The tag had broken me, but in breaking me, it had made me whole again. The shock of Melissa's tag lasted all of Wednesday and through Thursday morning. I didn't sleep much. I lay still, watching the shadows move across the ceiling. I was discharged later that day. I told the nurse I had arranged a ride. I packed my small bag. I put the laptop and the phone away. I knew my family hadn't picked up on my sudden silence yet. They were busy having fun. They were busy being the family without the drama. But the financial drama I kept buried for them was about to explode. I was supposed to call my ride, Gramps. But before I did, I had a compulsion. I had to know when their panic started. I turned my phone back on. The screen exploded with notifications. I had been offline for a full day since deleting the social media apps. I bypassed the few concerned texts from coworkers. I went straight to my family group chat. The history was long and frantic. The stream of calls, texts, and voicemails confirmed everything I already suspected. They hadn't called out of love. They called out of need. The total count was 63 missed calls. A sickening massive number. I scrolled through them. Every single one was logged between Wednesday afternoon, when I stopped replying, and Thursday morning, right before I was due to be discharged. The first texts were confused. Mom, Wednesday? Dr. PM. Maya, why aren't you answering? Did the doctor take your phone? Call us back, Melissa, Wednesday 4:30 p.m. Hey, you have to answer. My car payment bounced. It literally bounced. I need that fixed ASAP, my car payment. Not my heart. Not my life. My car payment. The calls continued, becoming more frequent, more demanding. The language escalated quickly, skipping over concern entirely and going straight to accusation. Dad, Wednesday 7 p.m. Maya, this isn't funny. The bank just called me. The mortgage payment is late. We need the transfer. Where are you? Mom, voicemail screaming. You need to fix this. Your father is having an absolute fit. We are going to lose the house. This is your fault. I listened to Mom's voicemail twice. She was hysterical. Not hysterical with worry for her sick daughter. Hysterical with fear for her own comfort, for her own security. I realized with chilling clarity the exact timeline of their concern. The doctor called them Monday. They were silent until the bills started failing on Wednesday. My personal medical crisis was nothing. Their financial inconvenience was a 5-alarm emergency. Then I saw the text that broke the dam. It was from Dad, stamped 3 a.m. on Thursday morning. Dad, we need you. Answer immediately. We can't pay the mortgage. The money is gone. Answer the damn phone. The money is gone. That was the final straw. That was the confession. That was the truth laid bare. It wasn't a heart attack that put them into a panic. It was a bounced check. I sat on the edge of the hospital bed, holding the small phone, feeling the full, crushing weight of their selfishness. My entire life, I had existed to bridge the gap between their desires and their reality. I was the financial grease that kept their beautiful, superficial machine running. I was the secret behind the smiles in the Instagram photo. I had been keeping that mortgage afloat for years. I was the reason they still had that big house. My steady paycheck went entirely to paying my own bills, and then paying a massive percentage of theirs. I sacrificed my health, my savings, and my entire future, just so they could live comfortably. And when I collapsed, when the system broke down, they didn't even check to see if the engine was salvageable. They just waited until the fuel gauge hit empty and then started screaming at the car. I remember thinking about the irony. My heart literally quit from stress, and their response to my near death was to inflict more stress. They were willing to sacrifice me completely to maintain their illusion of financial stability. The shame of my own foolishness washed over me. I had allowed this. I had enabled this. I had built the cage they kept me in. I had always hoped deep down that if a true emergency happened, a fire, an accident, a medical crisis, that the real family would show up, the one built on unconditional love. I realize now that this was the true emergency, and the real family was a pack of opportunistic wolves, focused only on the wound that threatened their food supply. I stood up. I felt physically weak, but internally a cold metallic strength was forming. The hope was gone, and hope is exhausting. Now I had the energy of pure survival. I picked up the phone again. Dad was calling again. His number flashed on the screen. I let it ring, and ring, and ring. I imagined him sitting in his expensive chair, staring at the phone, furious, not because I was sick, but because his comfortable world was crumbling. I did not answer. I opened my contacts and called the only person whose number I could trust. I called Gramps. I knew I couldn't go back to my old apartment. It was too close to them. They would find me. They would camp outside. They would use tears and guilt and anger to try and force me back online. I needed protection. I needed space. I needed a lawyer, yes, but first I needed a witness. A clear-eyed, honest anchor. Gramps answered immediately, sounding tired but alert. Gramps, I'm discharged. I'm leaving the hospital now, I said. My voice was steady. It was the calmest I had felt in days. Good. Where do you want to go, Maya? He asked. Simple. No questions about the family. He knew. I can't go to my place. I need to be completely safe. I need to disappear for a few days, I told him. I have the cabin. It's 30 miles north of the city. No cell service, only a landline. They don't know the address. Come here, he said, and gave me simple, direct instructions. I need you to pick me up, Gramps. I can't drive right now. My heart. I'm 10 minutes away. I was already in the parking lot. I figured you'd need a ride, he said. He was waiting. He hadn't just hoped I would call. He had anticipated my need and was already there. He was the safety net I had always tried to be for everyone else. I hung up. Dad's call was still ringing. I finally answered it. Not with my voice, but with a silent tap on the screen. Decline. I picked up my small bag. I walked out of the room. I didn't look back. I walked through the sterile halls, pulling off the hospital bracelet as I went. I threw it in a trash can. The faint beeping world of critical care was behind me. The harsh, messy world of betrayal was in front of me. I met Gramps by the staff entrance. He was leaning against an old, perfectly maintained pickup truck. He didn't rush me. He didn't hug me. He just opened the passenger door. Get in, Maya, he said. His eyes were sad but firm. It's time to stop paying. It's time to drive away. As we pulled out of the parking lot, heading north, away from my old life, my phone began to vibrate violently. It was my mother, calling again. I reached down, found the power button and pressed it hard. The screen went black. The noise stopped. The final straw had been pulled, and my new life, quiet and terrifying, had just begun. The drive north with Gramps was silent. The old truck rumbled along the highway. I watched the city lights fade in the rearview mirror, replaced by dark trees and the shape of rolling hills. The silence was not awkward. It was a relief. It was the absence of demands. Gramps didn't ask me how I was feeling. He didn't ask me about the voicemails or the texts he had to assume I'd gotten. He just let me be. When we finally turned off the main road, the cabin was deep down a winding dirt track. We drove for another 10 minutes before the small structure came into view. It was simple. Dark wood, a steep roof, a porch that faced the woods. It looked solid. It looked safe. Gramps opened the door for me. The air smelled like pine and clean dirt. It was cold, but it felt good. Clean. We went inside. The cabin was exactly how I remembered it from the one time I'd visited years ago. Simple wood floors. A big stone fireplace. An old soft sofa. No screens except for a small, dusty television in the corner. There was a wood-burning stove already lit in the kitchen area. Gramps had clearly been preparing. He set my bag down. He took my coat. He didn't hover. You sit down, Maya. I'll make tea, he said. I sat on the sofa. I felt the tension draining out of my shoulders. It was the first time in my adult life that I was in a place where I didn't owe anyone anything. The silence here was not neglect. It was permission to rest. When he brought the tea, he finally sat across from me. He looked at me for a long moment, his eyes quiet and clear. You look beat up, kid, he said gently. My heart's fine now, Gramps. The rest of me? I don't know. He nodded slowly, sipping his tea. He didn't offer cheap comfort. He offered truth. So, he said softly. He leaned forward a little. They finally broke you too, huh? That was it. That was the moment. He didn't ask what happened. He didn't ask why I cut them off. He just acknowledged the inevitable result of 2 decades of being used. They finally broke you too. I didn't cry. The tears were done, but I felt the immense, heavy pressure in my chest finally release. Someone saw it. Someone had named the pattern. I saw the picture, Gramps, I whispered, the one Melissa tagged me in. Family day without the drama. They knew I was in the ICU. They just didn't care, Gramps sighed. It was a sound of profound disappointment, not in me, but in his own daughter. They never learned the difference between a person and a prop. Maya, he said, resting his large, calloused hands on his knees. Your mother and father and your siblings, they live in a permanent state of need. They are emotional vampires. And you were the easiest, purest bloodline they could tap. He wasn't cruel. He was factual. His simple, direct language cut through all the years of excuses I had made for them. I tried to warn you, he continued. Years ago when you started sending money home from college, I told you, you can't save them. You can only sink with them. But you're a good kid. You have a huge, foolish heart. You kept hoping they would eventually see you as a daughter, not as a bank account. I thought I was helping, I said, the words tasting bitter. I thought if I gave them enough, they would finally be happy. And then maybe, finally, they could focus on me. Gramps shook his head. They don't want to be happy, Maya. They want to be comfortable. And they want someone else to pay for it. When they ran out of money, they didn't call the bank. They called the source, you. Now that the money is gone, you are the problem, not the victim. You have to understand that completely. He reached over and gently touched my hand. His touch was warm and real. But you fought back, he said with a hint of pride. You're here. You got out. That took guts. That took survival instinct. Good. He then stood up, moving slowly, and went to a small cabinet. He pulled out a worn box. It was full of papers. "I kept this, Maya," he said, placing the box on the coffee table. "Every time you ever mentioned sending money home, every time you complained about co-signing, every time your father tried to borrow from me for your bills, I wrote it down. I kept my own ledger." I stared at the box. Inside was decades of proof, 2 decades of my servitude, meticulously recorded by the one person who saw the con. "Why?" I asked, my voice choked. "Because I knew this moment was coming," Gramps repeated. "The only way you ever get free is with documentation. Love won't save you. Evidence will. You have been a victim, Maya, but now you have the proof to stop being one." He then spoke about the practical next step. The lawyer, Mr. Hayes, who was ready to file the cease and desist letter, he told me about the necessary documents he had already gathered. Old family letters demanding money, his own bank records showing loans my father never repaid, all of it. Gramps wasn't just my grandfather. He was my immediate quiet rescue team. He was providing the strategic, cold clarity that my emotional exhaustion couldn't provide. "We start the process tomorrow," he said. "We shut down all their attempts to contact you. We send the message. The ATM is closed. Permanently. You are done paying. You are done fixing." He got up and began to make dinner. Simple stew on the wood stove. I stayed on the sofa, staring at the box of papers. My hands, which had been so weak in the hospital, now felt steady. The terror was gone. The confusion was gone. It was replaced by a cold, surgical resolve. I thought about the 63 missed calls. I thought about the fear and panic in my father's text. "We need you. Answer immediately." I realized they didn't even know where I was, or that I was finally safe. They were still at the house, staring at their frozen bank accounts, waiting for me to come back online and resume my function. That was the power. My silence was their chaos. My absence was their reckoning. I stood up and walked over to the kitchen counter. Gramps was chopping carrots. "Gramps," I said, my voice quiet, "I need my laptop. I need to start the freezing process tonight. I want to shut everything down before they can try anything else." He paused, put the knife down, and looked at me. His eyes showed approval. "Good girl, Maya," he said. "Get your laptop. Let's cut the cords completely." This quiet cabin with the smell of pine and simple cooking was not just a hiding place. It was the staging ground for my freedom. My quiet rescue was not just physical. It was the rescue of my self-worth. The stew smelled good, but I couldn't eat. All the energy I had left was focused on the box of proof Gramps had placed on the table and the glowing screen of my laptop. I pulled the laptop closer. This was it. The moment I stopped being the bank and started being an individual. My heart, the tired organ that had failed me, felt strangely calm. The fear was still there, a low hum, but it was buried under a cold, necessary resolve. "I need your eyes on this, Gramps," I said, my voice steady. "If I make a mistake now, they'll find a way to claw me back." He pulled his chair up beside me, quiet and solid. "I'm right here, Maya. You tell me what you need to do." I started with the easiest accounts, the low-hanging fruit of their dependence. I went into my personal banking portal. I had 3 accounts: checking, savings, and an old joint account with Mom that I'd mostly forgotten about. The first step was to lock down the checking account. This was the main artery. It's where my paycheck went, and where all their auto payments were linked. I changed the password immediately. I made it complicated. Numbers, symbols, things only I would remember. Next, I went through the list of recurring transfers. The list was sickeningly long. Melissa's car insurance, $285, monthly, Dad's boat slip fee, $150, monthly. They didn't even need the boat, but Dad liked having it. Paige's business utility bill, $450, monthly. Mom's credit card minimum payment, $300, monthly. One by one, I clicked cancel auto payment. With each click, my finger felt heavier. This was not just canceling a bill. This was canceling my identity as the responsible one. This was choosing myself over their comfort. I paused after canceling Melissa's insurance. I could hear her voice in my head, high-pitched and demanding. "Fix this now! What if she gets in an accident, Gramps?" I asked, looking up. The guilt reflex was automatic. Gramps didn't hesitate. "Then she deals with the consequences of not being responsible for her own life. You are not her insurance company, Maya. You are her sister. A sister she left for dead. Click the button. Get her off your books." I clicked. Confirmed. The digital relief was immediate. The next crucial step was to cancel the debit card associated with the checking account. Even with the password changed, they could still try to use the card number online. I reported it lost, ordered a new one, and asked the bank to send it to Gramps' cabin address, under his name for security. The bank representative, a very distant bored woman, asked, "Reason for replacement?" I took a deep breath. Financial fraud and unauthorized use by family members. The word fraud changed her tone. She became instantly alert, typing furiously. That simple word had more power than all my years of crying. I moved on to the joint account with Mom. I had forgotten I even had it. When I checked the balance, it was empty. Not just empty, it was overdrawn by $50. They were still using it, and they were still sucking it dry. I saw the transactions. A 4.0 coffee, a 12.0 fast food lunch. Small casual thefts. They didn't even notice I was gone because they operated on such a fine level of entitlement. I immediately initiated a closure request. The bank notified me that Mom would be alerted about the closure and the overdraft fee. Good, Gramps muttered, watching the screen. Let her deal with the $50. It's the cost of being caught. The house of cards. The HELOC then came the serious damage. The house. My parents' mortgage wasn't linked to me, but the home equity line of credit, HELOC, was. This was the deep cut. They had convinced me that linking my primary savings and checking accounts to their HELOC gave them easy access for emergency house repairs. The truth was, it gave them a legalized way to siphon off my entire savings every time I put a large sum in. I logged into the HELOC portal. I had the passwords because I was the one who managed their entire financial life. I checked the history. The savings account I had been desperately building for a down payment on my own apartment? Drained. The $5,000 I thought was still there? Transferred in a series of $500 and $800 chunks, labeled as home maintenance fee or urgent repair. All while I lay unconscious in the ICU, I saw the date of the last transfer, Tuesday morning, the day after the collapse. They were at the lake on Wednesday. So, on Tuesday, they were finalizing the theft of my last $500 before deciding their family day was more important than my life. The rage wasn't hot. It was freezing cold. It crystallized everything. It wasn't neglect. It was predation. I didn't pause. I clicked into the account settings. I found the linked payment sources. My primary checking account. My savings account, I clicked Remove All Links. The system warned me, this action is irreversible and may result in immediate default on future payments. Remove them, I told Gramps. Hit the button. He reached over and clicked the confirmation button. A small, definitive flash of light on the screen. I then went into their notification settings and changed the contact email to a burner address I created instantly. They wouldn't know why the payments had stopped. They would just know the money had stopped flowing. They're going to panic, Maya, Gramps observed, his voice low. They have no other way to cover the HELOC. They've been living off that credit line for years. They are functionally bankrupt right now. Good, I repeated. It was the only word I had left for them. The legal quagmire. Paige's loan. The hardest part was Paige's boutique loan, the one I had co-signed. I pulled up the bank documents. The original loan was for $50,000. Paige had paid maybe $10,000 of it before failing spectacularly. The remaining balance, plus penalties and interest, was $38,000. Because I was the co-signer, the bank was now demanding payment from me. My credit score was already showing the damage from Paige's defaults. I pulled up my liquid savings balance. It was under $2,000 now, thanks to the HELOC theft. I couldn't pay the $38,000 even if I wanted to. The bank would come after me. This is the trickiest one, Maya, Gramps admitted, looking at the numbers. They've got you legally here. You signed the paper. I was coerced, I said, thinking back to that kitchen table meeting. It was family pressure, emotional blackmail. That's hard to prove, he cautioned. But you can't pay it, not now. Not ever. I had two choices. File for bankruptcy and destroy my credit for years, or fight the coercion. I called the bank's loan department. Mr. Hayes, the lawyer, had told me exactly what to say. I am Maya Turner. I am formally notifying you that I believe I was coerced into co-signing this business loan. I am prepared to file a fraudulent signature and coercion report with the state regulatory body, citing the undue influence and financial dependency of my family. I require all documentation relating to the original loan signing, including any transcripts of calls and notarized affidavits. The loan officer was shocked into silence. I had moved from being a late payer to being a legal threat. Ms. Turner, that's a serious allegation. It is, and I have years of documented financial exploitation to back it up, I stated flatly. I will not be making any payments on this loan. Direct all future communication to my legal counsel. I gave him Mr. Hayes' number. I hung up. I didn't feel relief this time. I felt the sharp fear of a looming lawsuit. but I had shifted the problem. It was no longer a debt I owed. It was a legal battle I was prepared to fight. And I had Gramps, the ledger, and Mr. Hayes on my side, the paper fortress for the next 4 hours I worked. I filed official change of address forms with the post office, directing all my mail to a secure P.O. box far from the city. I changed every password for every account I owned. Email, retirement, health insurance. I scrubbed my digital presence, removing any current information that could lead them to Gramps' cabin. I printed everything, every single transaction, every nasty text message, every piece of evidence of their greed. I put them all in the box Gramps provided. It was my paper fortress. When I was finally done, the sun had set completely. The cabin was warm. The stew was ready. I closed the laptop. I leaned back on the wooden chair, utterly exhausted. I had just dismantled the structure of my adult life. It was a terrifying void, but it was my void. Gramps placed a bowl of stew in front of me. "You look like you just finished a marathon, Maya," he said. "I did," I replied, staring into the steam. I paid for their mortgage, their cars, their luxuries. I almost died doing it, and they celebrated my absence. "It's over now, though," he reminded me. "The money flow stops. That's the only thing they understand. Their world is going to crash, Maya. Hard, and you can't feel guilty about it." "I don't," I said, surprised by the truth of my own words. "I feel empty, but not guilty." I realized that the final straw was truly final. Their panic about the money, the panic I was supposed to fix, had given me the clarity to cut the cords. I was no longer a daughter. I was a survivor. I was free, and I was ready for the fallout. The stillness of the cabin was the perfect antidote to the chaos I had unleashed. But the quiet only lasted about 36 hours. Then, the storm hit. I had shut down my family's financial access on Thursday night. By Saturday morning, the calls started again. Not 63 missed calls this time. These were strategic attacks. They had realized I wasn't just being dramatic. I was actively dismantling their lives. My old phone, the one I had just wiped clean and was only using to monitor legal communication, started vibrating. It was a new text thread. "Melissa, Melissa. Saturday, 8 a.m. I woke up and my car was gone. Towed. The insurance lapsed. Maya, you have done this. I'm calling the police. You are stealing from me. Fix this now." I showed the text to Gramps. He was reading the paper. He didn't even look up. "Tell her to call the police," he said, turning a page. "Tell her you canceled the insurance that you paid for because she left you to die in the hospital. She'll stop calling the police very fast. She knows who the real thief is." I didn't reply to Melissa. I forwarded the text to Mr. Hayes. Silence was my protection. Next came Mom. She didn't text. She left a series of voicemails. They were masterpieces of emotional terrorism. "Mom," voicemail 1, whining. "Maya, sweetheart, this is completely unreasonable. Dad can't sleep. You know he has a weak heart. You are literally making your father ill. We know you're stressed, but you can't punish your whole family. We didn't do anything wrong. We just needed a little help. We are blood." Mom, voicemail 3, dripping with guilt. "I haven't eaten in 2 days. I'm worried sick. I called the power company. They said the auto pay was canceled. If the power goes out, it's on your conscience, Maya. Do you want to hurt your mother like this? After everything I did for you? This is selfish. This is cruel." Mom, voicemail 6, coldly angry. "I don't know who you are talking to or who put these ideas in your head, but you are trying to prove something that isn't true. We are your support system. You need to realize that. You are unstable right now. You had a medical crisis. You are not thinking clearly. Turn the money back on, Maya, or we will be forced to take action to protect you from yourself." That last voicemail was the most chilling. Forced to take action to protect you from yourself. It was a clear, coded threat. They were laying the groundwork for the next attack. Paige tried a different tactic. He played the innocent, betrayed sibling. Paige, long text. "I love you, Maya. This isn't about the money for my boutique. This is about us. I know you're hurt and I'm so sorry. Please just talk to me. Don't let a lawyer come between us. I'll pay you back. I promise. Just don't punish me for things I didn't personally do. Don't make me lose everything. Please." It was a lie designed to get me to break the lawyer's wall. He wanted me to call him, whisper the details, and give him the chance to manipulate me back into co-signing a refinance. I deleted the text without a second thought. I didn't feel sorry for him. I felt nothing but a cool, detached acknowledgement of his weakness. He was a professional pretender. The legal hammer fell on Monday morning. I was sitting with Gramps drinking coffee, feeling almost normal. The landline phone, the only phone they couldn't possibly know about, rang. It was Mr. Hayes. "Maya, I need you to stay calm. They went for the nuclear option," he said, His voice clipped and serious. The police? I asked, instantly alert. Worse, they filed a petition for conservatorship over you. I didn't understand the word immediately. I just heard the sound of the word, heavy and official. What does that mean, Mr. Hayes? It means they are claiming that your cardiac event, and the subsequent stress you claim they caused, has left you mentally unstable and unfit to handle your own finances and medical decisions. They want the court to grant them legal control over your life. They want to be your guardians. The air left my lungs. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about my very existence as a functioning adult. They didn't just want my savings. They wanted to own me. They wanted to legalize their theft and turn me into their permanent legal victim. I felt a violent, visceral coldness. This was the ultimate betrayal. My parents were trying to use the law to declare me incompetent because I had finally stopped giving them money. They used the hospital stay, I whispered, the rage finally burning through the cold. They used my medical emergency against me. Exactly, Mr. Hayes confirmed. They claim your sudden lashing out and irrational decision to cut off the family finances is proof of cognitive impairment. They are using their family doctor's report, which we know is biased, stating you have a history of anxiety and dramatic episodes. They are trying to move fast, before you can fight back. The hypocrisy was suffocating. They nearly killed me with their demands, and now they wanted to use the consequence of their actions as a legal basis to control me forever. They were trying to silence my story by declaring me crazy. What is the motive truly? I asked Gramps, after I hung up with Mr. Hayes. Gramps was staring out the window, his face granite. The motive is two things, Maya. First, the mortgage. If they get conservatorship, they can access your investment accounts and your retirement funds to pay their immediate debts. Second, they need to shut down the fraud investigation. If they can prove you're unstable, they can claim all those financial transfers you logged were simply confused actions by a sick person, not outright theft by them. It was a brilliant, terrifying strategy. It meant that my entire life, my career, my independence, my ability to choose where I lived or what doctor I saw, was now in jeopardy. I looked at Gramps. We fight this, right? We show the judge the tag. We show them the bank statements. We do, Gramps said, standing up, his voice resonating with power. But this is where you stop being the victim and start being the witness. You have to be calm. You have to be perfect. They want drama. We give them absolute, unshakable stability. We use their desperation against them. They wanted control. We're going to give them ruin. I realized then that my fight was no longer personal. It was a fight for my sanity, my freedom, and my right to define my own story. They had retaliated with the ultimate weapon, and I had to be ready for the legal war that was coming. The conservatorship petition was the dirtiest move, but it was also the last move they had. It meant they had abandoned all pretense of love and were now operating purely as aggressors. I finally understood Gramps' logic. They were not clever, just loud and dependent. Their aggression was a sign of their terminal weakness. Mr. Hayes, the lawyer, was not just good. He was surgically precise. He saw the petition for exactly what it was. A panicked, desperate attempt to regain financial access under the guise of concern. They want a quick ruling, Maya, he told me over the landline. They filed an emergency motion. They are relying on the court seeing the word cardiac event and the words sudden financial cutoff and just assuming instability. We will deny them that speed. Mr. Hayes' strategy was simple. Bury them in the truth. He instructed me to focus on two things, my physical health and my mental clarity. I had to become the living proof that their claim was a lie. I spent an entire day with Dr. Chen, the neutral mental health expert. She was sharp, clinical, and didn't care about family drama. She cared about facts. I laid out the whole timeline again, but this time I didn't frame it as emotional hurt. I framed it as a rational decision-making process under extreme duress. Dr. Chen, I explained, my voice level. I had a heart failure because of chronic stress caused by managing my family's financial obligations. When I learned they prioritized a picnic over my critical condition, I logically assessed that my relationship with them was purely transactional. The decision to sever ties was an act of financial and physical self-preservation. It was the most stable, most rational decision I have made in my adult life. I showed her the banking records, the HELOC transfers, the empty savings account, and the infamous family day without the drama tag. Dr. Chen concluded the evaluation with a definitive, notarized letter. This was our first shield. It stated I was fully competent, rational, and that my actions were a sound response to long-term financial and emotional exploitation. The only mental health concern, she wrote, was the anxiety caused by my family, which was rapidly improving after the separation. While I focused on the emotional stability, Gramps focused on the financial instability. Theirs. Gramps had been keeping his ledger for 20 years, and Mr. Hayes treated it like gold. They spent days going through the documentation. "Look at this, Maya," Gramps said, spreading out a series of papers. "This is Dad's signature. He told me he was borrowing $5,000 to cover your last semester of college tuition. I have the bank receipt right here, dated September 2018. Then he pulled out a receipt from a marina. And here is the payment for the boat slip, also dated September 2018. The money never went to your tuition. It went to his luxury toy. This wasn't just my word against theirs. This was evidence of a pattern of deceit and financial misrepresentation. Mr. Hayes compiled everything into a massive counter-petition. It wasn't just a defense against the conservatorship. It was a preemptive strike that turned the court's attention entirely onto my parents. His filing contained several heavy blows. Dr. Chen's evaluation, proof of my stability and the rationality of my actions, my employer's affidavit, confirmation that I was a reliable employee, on voluntary leave, and financially capable of supporting myself, the transactional history, a detailed, itemized list of every payment I had made for them, contrasted with their low income and high expenditures, like Melissa's car and Dad's boat slip. This showed the court who was truly dependent and incapable of managing money. The timing. Mr. Hayes zeroed in on the timing of their filing. He argued, with supporting bank notification evidence, that the petition was filed immediately after their accounts were frozen and before I was fully discharged from the hospital. He explicitly accused them of attempting to defraud the court to gain illegal access to my retirement savings to cover their own reckless spending. The judge reviewing the emergency motion was an older woman with a reputation for sharp discernment. She saw through the emotional language of my parents' petition instantly. They presented me as a hysterical, sick daughter. Mr. Hayes presented me as a stable, financially competent woman being preyed upon by her bankrupt, deceitful family. The judge didn't even schedule the emergency hearing. The notification came to Mr. Hayes on a Tuesday afternoon. It was simple. The petition was dismissed with prejudice. This meant they couldn't just refile it later. The judge had found their grounds to be flimsy and their motives highly questionable. I was sitting on the cabin porch, watching the rain, when Gramps brought me the phone. "Mr. Hayes." "Good news," he whispered. I took the phone. Mr. Hayes explained the dismissal in his usual clipped, professional manner. "They failed, Maya. They used their final weapon and it misfired. The court now has a record of their financial dependency and their willingness to lie under oath. They tried to use the law to make you their victim. Instead, the law has exposed them as the perpetrators." I hung up the phone. I looked at Gramps. The relief was so profound it felt like I might float away. "It's over, Gramps," I said. "I'm free. They can't touch me legally." Gramps didn't cheer. He just nodded and patted my shoulder. "You were always free, Maya. You just needed to stop carrying their anchor." The victory wasn't just the dismissal. The victory was the official legal validation of my experience. The court had essentially agreed. Maya Turner is sane, rational, and justified in cutting off her exploitative family. Their desperate attempt to turn the tide had caused the tide to crash down squarely on their own heads. They were exposed, not just to me but to the legal system. The power had turned. I was safe. They were now vulnerable. The stage was set for their final, public unraveling. The dismissal of the conservatorship petition was the legal end of their fight, but it triggered the social media explosion. My family, now broke and legally defeated, retreated to the only arena they truly understood, the public performance of victimhood. They couldn't sue me, and they couldn't control me. So, they tried to assassinate my character. Melissa and Paige were the spearheads of this attack. They had always operated within the bubble of sponsored posts and picture-perfect lives. That bubble was about to burst. Melissa launched the first volley. She posted a new video, this time even more dramatic than the first. She was sitting in her car, the one that had just been towed and repossessed, in tears. The setting was the parking lot of her old workplace. Melissa, video, hysterically crying. "I'm heartbroken. My sister Maya is mentally unwell. She had a breakdown and has chosen to punish the entire family. She filed false reports and legal threats against us. She is hiding us from her lawyer. She is so sick she can't even manage her own life, but she's destroying ours. I am begging her to get help and stop this cruel attack on our parents. We love her. We are the real victims here." Paige chimed in on his failing boutique's page. He posted a photo of the bare walls of his shop, which he was being evicted from. Page, caption, deeply accusatory. Look at what family love gets you. My sister Maya co-signed my loan and then deliberately defaulted on it to ruin my business. She is malicious. She is trying to destroy our livelihoods. She is bitter and jealous of our success. The bank is chasing me. The law is chasing me. Maya, you have a cold heart. The posts were designed to look like raw, vulnerable pain. They were masters of this performance. At first it worked. The initial wave of comments were sympathetic. People believed the crying, the dramatic staging. User OrKindSoul34. I can't believe a sister would do this. She sounds like a monster. User Aunt Family First. Praying for your family. You need to expose her fully. I watched it from the cabin, my phone on Gramps' Wi-Fi. The old guilt, that familiar reflex of wanting to jump in and defend myself tightened in my chest. Don't do it, Maya, Gramps said, watching me. Remember, they want you to react. They want you to validate their claim of drama. Let them dig their own grave. The magic happened because their story had a huge, visible flaw, the truth. It was a random user, someone I didn't know and had never interacted with, who dealt the first fatal blow. The comment appeared under Melissa's tearful video, user or fact-checker42. Wait, if Maya is so sick and unstable, why did you post a photo on Wednesday, 2 days after her collapse, captioned, family day without the drama, and tag her? You left her in the hospital and mocked her. Screenshots are circulating. The comment was immediately screenshotted by others before Melissa could delete it. Then, the original screenshot of the family day photo was reposted everywhere. It was a clear, undeniable piece of evidence. The context shifted instantly. People saw the blatant timeline. Monday, Maya collapses, heart attack. Wednesday, family has a picnic and mocks her in the ICU, without the drama. The next week, family claims she is sick and unstable to steal her money. The public no longer saw a heartbroken family. They saw cold, calculated opportunists. The comments turned vicious, pointed, and directed entirely at Melissa and Paige. You're disgusting. You are the drama. You left your sister to die just so you could go to the lake? The only thing unstable is your bank account. Show us the bank statements, Paige. Show us how much Maya paid. The backlash was swift and financially devastating. Melissa lost her sponsorships. She was the face of several small lifestyle brands. Those brands had reputations to protect. They issued rapid, terse statements. We are terminating our relationship with Melissa X due to recent events showing a lack of ethical conduct and empathy. Her income stream, built entirely on her false persona, dried up instantly. Paige's boutique officially collapsed. The news of his financial failure, combined with the public's outrage over the family's conduct, led to a flood of demands for refunds and boycotts. The landlord immediately filed for eviction. His loan cosigner, me, was fighting the bank, and his public image was toxic. The business was dead. The storm reached my parents through my father's professional life. Dad was an insurance broker. His business was founded on relationships, trust, and the appearance of being a solid, moral pillar of the community. Local news outlets picked up the story, focusing on the shocking family betrayal. The headlines were brutal. Insurance broker's family exposed for financial and emotional exploitation of critically ill daughter. Dad's clients, the same people he sold family protection policies to, saw the headlines. They saw the public record of my lawyer's filing, which detailed their financial instability and fraudulent attempts to use the court. He didn't just lose clients. He lost his job, his company, citing irreconcilable conflicts between professional role and public exposure, quietly forced him to resign. He was financially dependent on me, and now he was professionally ruined by the consequences of that dependency. I watched it all unfold from the cabin. I didn't lift a finger. I didn't make a single comment. I simply watched their careful, decades-long construction of the perfect family facade crumble under the weight of a single ugly truth. They didn't care about me. They only cared about my money. The quiet power of observation was immense. I wasn't the monster they claimed. They were just suffering the logical, real-world consequences of their choices. I felt no joy in their ruin, only a deep, cold satisfaction that the system they had abused was finally consuming them. Their public masks had cracked, and the judgment of the world was swift and final. The public shaming was the last phase of the war, and I was just an observer. I did not celebrate their downfall. I simply accepted it as the inevitable outcome of their actions. They had spent decades building a facade of perfection using my stability as the foundation. When I removed myself, the whole thing collapsed. The cabin remained my sanctuary. The deep quiet was healing. The days were simple. Coffee, a slow walk in the woods with Gramps, simple meals cooked on the wood stove, and rest. My heart rate monitor, which I still wore, showed steady, healthy rhythms. The physical symptoms of stress, the migraines, the chest tightness, were gone. The only communication from the outside world was through Mr. Hayes. He kept me updated on the aftermath. Page's boutique was officially closed, liquidated to pay the most pressing creditors. The bank was still pursuing me for the co-signed loan, but Mr. Hayes was successfully delaying them with the threat of the coercion fraud claim. Melissa's car was fully repossessed. She was posting desperate pleas for new work, which were largely ignored or met with mocking comments referencing the family day without the drama tag, and my parents. My father was home jobless. The calls and voicemails stopped completely. Their anger had turned to impotent, sullen silence. They had no one left to blame, and no way to reach me. One final desperate plea came, delivered not by phone, but through the postal service to Mr. Hayes' office, who then forwarded it to Gramps. It was a handwritten letter from my mother. I sat at the wooden table in the cabin, turning the envelope over in my hand. It looked fragile. Gramps was beside me, splitting wood on the porch. The rhythmic thwack of the axe was my background soundtrack. I opened the letter. The handwriting was shaky. It was 4 pages long, filled with ink blots where her tears had fallen. It was not an apology. It was a masterpiece of reverse victimhood. Mom, letter excerpts. Your father is broken. He just sits in the dark. You were his favorite, Maya. How could you do this to him? I miss you so much, but I don't know who this cold person is. We are scared. We have nowhere to go. We just needed our daughter. You have ruined us. Please, can't we talk? Just you and me. We can fix this. We can put the family back together. I am worried about your mental state, Maya. You need us. She missed me, but only the me that paid the bills. She worried about my mental state, but only to justify her own actions. She spoke of fixing the family, which meant reconnecting the credit line. I read the letter twice. There was no acknowledgement of the ICU, the tag, the theft, or the attempt to have me declared incompetent. Not a single sentence of remorse. Just guilt, projection, and need. I walked out onto the porch. Gramps paused his work. I held the letter out. It's the last one, I said. Gramps looked at the paper, his face unreadable. What does it say? It says she misses the money. It says I broke Dad. It says I need them. He leaned on the axe handle. And what does the free woman say? I looked at the pages, which now felt thin and cheap. I realized I didn't hate her anymore. Hate is energy. I just felt nothing. I felt finality. I walked to the outdoor burn barrel Gramps used for yard waste. I held the letter over the metal rim. I lit a match and dropped it onto the corner of the paper. The paper curled quickly, turning black and brittle. The words vanished into ash. I watched until the last piece of flame died out. I say no, I told Gramps. I say I am done. The moment the smoke cleared, I felt a physical change. A new beginning. My next steps were clean, strategic, and entirely about securing my future freedom. First, I formalized my separation. With Mr. Hayes' guidance, I signed legal documents removing my parents as my emergency contacts and substituting Gramps. This was the most important document. If I ever needed emergency care again, they would not be notified, and they would have zero legal right to make decisions or access my medical information. Second, I formally waived any claim to their inheritance. They had little left to pass on but debt, and I wanted zero ties. I cut the financial cord of the past and the cord of the future simultaneously. Third, I made the deepest personal change. I legally changed my name. I kept Maya, but I adopted my paternal grandmother's maiden name, a strong, simple name from a generation that valued hard work and quiet integrity. I was no longer Maya Turner. The name that was synonymous with family obligation and debt was gone. I was a new person with a clean slate. I sold my apartment. It was a small, stressful place filled with the ghosts of bills paid and favors granted. I took the small profit and put it into a high-security retirement fund under my new name. I didn't go back to the city. I didn't want the noise, the stress, or the chance encounter. Gramps decided to sell his house in the city and live full-time in the cabin. We settled into a new, quiet life together. My days were filled with the simple tasks of living, gardening, splitting wood, reading, and recovering my strength. I started working again, remotely, for a small firm that valued my efficiency but respected my boundaries. I set strict hours. I never checked email at night. I protected my peace like it was a priceless treasure. My family still exists out there. They are still telling people I abandoned them. They are still poor, but now they are poor alone. Their tragedy is that they never understood the difference between being loved and being paid. I live 30 miles from them. but emotionally, I am on a different planet. One evening, Gramps and I were sitting by the fire. He was reading. I was sipping tea. The quiet was profound. "You found your peace, Maya," he said, without looking up. "It cost me my heart attack, my savings, and my family," I replied honestly. "No," he corrected me, putting his book down. "It cost you their expectations. And that was a very small price to pay for your life." I looked at the fire. The flames were warm. The simple reality of my life was solid and true. I had survived the collapse, the neglect, the theft, and the legal battle. I was no longer a victim. I was simply free. If you've ever carried your family until it broke you, only to realize walking away was the only way to survive, drop your story in the comments. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe, because sometimes the best revenge is peace.